In this video, I will be interviewing Matthew Primes, owner of Young Entrepreneur Enterprise. Hello, welcome to Siobhan's World. I am Siobhan Chase, helping you live life unlimited. Well, hello, Matthew. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure.
It is. I absolutely love having young entrepreneurs like yourself on the show to inspire us and give us some tidbits. So,
Okay.
to start off with, you are currently serving, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm currently serving at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. At the actual, they just moved me to the emergency room. So working me a little bit hard there, 12-hour shifts there. But it's nice because I get to practice in my MOS, which is a 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm a healthcare specialist. So I get to finally get some work in that after about 18 months in.
So, what exactly do you do as a healthcare specialist?
Really, just dealing with incoming patients into the ER with various symptoms, signs, taking their vitals, making sure everything's normal with their vitals, drawing up blood work if that's needed, being able to assist in any emergency situations as well, and, just keeping the morale up as well. Always trying to stay upbeat, it's something that I like to do within myself, keep that light shining. That's what I, that's good.
That's very reputable. We thank you for your service. As a healthcare specialist, is that equivalent to maybe a nurse? So,
It's
some of our
it's equivalent in the civilian world to an emergency medical technician. So I would actually work in the back of an ambulance more than likely, maybe at a firehouse, something of that nature. So that's what it's equivalent to.
okay, so I assume you enjoy your job helping people.
Yeah, it's not too shabby. It's not too shabby, but I actually just applied for school. I was gonna go for nursing, but evidently I don't like it enough. Because I decided to go for marketing. So
Okay, so marketing. Before we get into marketing and talking about your current business, how long have you been in the military? How long have you served?
geez, we just got over 2 years right now, so we're looking about at the end of this month it'd be like 2 years and 3 months.
Okay, well that's very awesome. That's very awesome. Serving this country in this time, we really commend those who, after today just happened to be September 11th, and you're on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of ironic. I didn't think of that prior,
That's
but
right.
it's really, really awesome that you all who continue to serve after September 11th. The country really appreciates that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. The military for me has been, nothing but good. As far as my personal development has gone, being able to give me the skills I need to be successful, outside in the civilian world, especially considering business and entrepreneurship.
Yes, yes. As I understand it, that the military is about developing leaders and those traits, and great leaders from the military do make great entrepreneurs. Um,
Yeah.
when you're in the military, I understand you have a family, and when you're in the military, it's not just you that's in the military; it's
Mm-hmm.
also your family. Pretty much signs up and says, "I do as well."
Yes.
So, will you tell us about your family dynamics and how they have been supportive towards you throughout your military career?
Well, my wife, she's the one who actually, quote unquote, told me to go into the military, inspired me to go into the military. And previously, before that, when I was a single man, I actually went to the Navy. I entered the Navy uh, back when I was 18, just because I needed some things to pay for school. And was shortly reunited with my real family, my biological family, that winter around Christmas. So then I had a leeway to get out of the Navy at that point, and then started my own family. I think we had our daughter, Heaven. She's 4 now. She was about two at that time, and kind of still dealing with my entrepreneur life, things of those nature. So I was kind of just looking off my assets. The wife was like, "Hey, let's get something more stable," and I was like, "All right, yeah, I can go ahead and jump into the military. Why not?" So God was really fortunate to me. I pretty much got the same contract I had when I was in the Navy, same signing bonus, same amount of time, everything. So he was really fortunate with me. And ever since then, I've been personally developing financially, mentally, physically, and me and my wife, like I said, we've been really blessed. We haven't had to go through all the ups and downs per se in the military. A lot of people have to go through because the good Lord brought me to the hospital, so I was working at the hospital instead of working in the field. Because if I was working in the field, then more than likely I would have been, you know, 30 days in the field, 2 weeks in the field. And by that time, I think we had our other son, so she would have had those 2 kids. And just probably wouldn't have been a good situation. But other than that, she's totally supportive. 9 times out of 10 wants me to stay in for the full 20 years. But I know God has bigger plans for me, so I have a 10-year plan right now, and just seeing where we may go from that. The kids, I think they really adapted to the military life. I mean, they love, that they have friends, in communities and things like that. So I haven't seen anything, because I haven't been employed or anything like that. So I haven't seen anything that would be, a detriment to them. So it's been good to them as well, as far as the resources that the military offers too.
Well, that's awesome. So you answered one of my questions about the deployment. So you haven't had any, but that doesn't discount all the great things you've done. Um, Helping here at home because we need our fingers and as far as well as out in the fields and all those things. So every element is important,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate that. So you mentioned that you reconnected one Christmas with your biological family, so that
Mm-hmm.
tells me that you are adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind telling us about um, how that reunion occurred and the background to that and how it turned out for you? Because some people turns out well for, some people it doesn't. So,
Mm-hmm.
you mind sharing your story?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't mind it. With the hopes that someone else will learn from it and they'll be able to take something away from it. You know, it was basically so I was adopted twice. So I went home, to my grandma's house, which that's basically my legal guardian, my mom, but she's like 80, so we call her Granny. And I was 18 at that time, so my previous adopted mother called me. She called me up on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm glad to be back in touch with you. Want to have a relationship with you again." Things of those. Like, hey, whatever. So went over to her house. She said, "Hey, I got a surprise for you on Christmas." So, went over there on Christmas. Excited like, "Yeah, I'm about to get me a Christmas present. Yeah, it's gonna be great." And her surprise ended up being my real family. So in that regard, you definitely have to prepare yourself to meet your real family. You definitely have to be made aware that you're going to meet your real family because it's not just something that you just think is a surprise and then, oh, they walk through the door. So, you know, in a nutshell, it was a shell shock, pretty much. Um, but I'm definitely adaptable, so kind of just like, all right, well, that's my mom, that's my dad. And before that, well, not my dad, no, sorry, I don't know my dad. My uncle, he was with her. And so before that, I did have some type of contact with her. I spoke to her on the phone because, long story short, the next door neighbors um, were like friends with my real family, which was really interesting because we lived in a duplex. So one day I was like outside the duplex, my sister like saw me, but she didn't say nothing. And then like later on down the road, I ended up talking with my biological mom, and she was like, "Oh man, I'm getting well," and all that kind of stuff. But like I was saying, it was just shell shock, as far as that experience. But, found out, hey, this is my family, this is where I come from. And my family is night and day, so it just shows how God really, can handpick you and pull you out of a situation because, I went to private school, like pretty much like a big part of my growing ages, I think, what, from fifth grade up. Um, I had a pretty darn well education. Didn't have to worry about running around the streets or anything like that. Whereas my biological family, I mean, street as it gets, So I mean, they were into dope, they were into guns, things like that. So it's hard for us to connect because I'm just who I am, and they're who they are. But of course, I still like didn't know them, still want to be a part of the family, things like that. Like I said, it was hard for us to connect So that was definitely a big barrier. Um, but now, I mean, I feel like, thinking about it, geez, 9 years later almost, um, I feel like, we definitely are associated with each other. Maybe we don't have the deepest bonds and things like that, but it's just good to know who my real family is. Um, I hope one day I can be an influence to my little brother, and just continue to help them achieve better things as well as myself because they really say that my family actually has a curse, with the street life, I guess you could say. 'Cause that's all they know, pretty much. That's all they've been exposed to. And they live in part of Akron, which is pretty much the original side of Akron. Like that's where like Akron like flourished. So I was fortunate enough to meet my granddad. He was a good guy, a real staple in the community. They call him the mayor of Akron. Um, so it was very humbling to meet him. And just look forward to continuing to build relationships with my family and hopefully, giving them a path that they can divert to if they ever want to.
So have you were you adopted 9 years ago, or was it? Because you mentioned 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't sure if you were adopted 9 years ago or you reconnected 9 years ago.
Reconnected 9 years.
So,
Yeah.
so you reconnected for nine. So you were adopted twice. Were you at any point adopted within the family, or both of these outside the family?
Outside the family, yeah. Outside the family. So like when I was born, drug baby, because it's big, I think I was cracked out, whatever. Just drug baby, so I was being snatched from my mother. And to show you how much God had handled, the primes, which is my last name, of course. They were in the hospital at the time. My sister knew who I would call my granddad, which was actually my father, but legally. And she approached him and said, "Hey, this situation going on. I think my sister probably like 12, 13, something like that." She had enough sense to be able to do that, so that was nice. And now I look back at it, I mean, it was only God, moved through her. Um, and so she contacted them. Then somehow I ended up going with them, in foster care. So then, they were saying like, I was pretty much just like a limp noodle almost, like they didn't think like all I did was sleep. Like, and one day my grandma said she came in and my head blew up. Like, so I was like, it was a real small head. And it just blew up out of nowhere. She was like really, really, nervous because it just looked abnormal. But it was just God's blessing on me. And I finally had like all my cognitive abilities and things like that. So ended up being in foster care for about 3 years. Got adopted out until I was 7. So at 3, I was adopted out of foster care to my mother, who later introduced me to my real parents, down the road. And then we got into a physical abuse thing. So then I went back to the house that I was at foster care with. And I'm the one who initiated that because I was like, I'm going back to grandma. Like, I'm going back to grandma because that's all I know. Like, I'm not going to go somewhere in the family. So, luckily, I was able to get back up in there, stayed there for a while, went back to the mother again, and then she just gave me up for adoption at like age 10. Just gave me up. They just came to my school. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. They just came to my school, picked me up, and like all my bags were packed. So at that point, I was like, all right, we'll take me to Granny's house. So then, went to her house, which was perfect timing. It was perfect timing because my granddad, he was having, heart attacks and things like that. So he was kind of ill, but he was still trucking. And needless to say, he later passed away. But I was like a godsend for that family because my grandma, she never drove. Like she never drove, nothing like that. Like she was like 70, 65 years old, never drove in her life. So now she has to drive. She still has about 6 kids in the house that she's taking care of by herself. Doesn't know where anything is in the city. Luckily, I had a sense of direction. Like I was around about in the city.
About how old were you at this time?
About 10, about 10 years old. So I was able to assist her, with like getting around, showing her where to go and things like that. So that was a godsend. I feel like God like made that happen. And then, later, by the time like 3 years go down the road, about 12, 13, got adopted by them. They adopted me. and everything else after that is history. I hope whenever God decides to call her home, one of my goals is to make sure her and her husband's legacy is cemented in this world because she fostered over 100 kids, adopted on top of that probably about eight I think, and then had nine of her own. So we talk about sainthood. I think she's pretty close to sainthood. So that's something I'm push forward. Whenever God calls her home and just memorialize, the home that she's made. Not just for me, but for a lot more other children. She has a lot of bills right now. She's about 85 right now. Still working three jobs. Working three jobs. She gets out every morning, does a paper route. She walks doing a paper route. She freaking almost disabled on her foot. She drags. She has like she gets to that age where like her legs are getting heavy. So she'll like pick her legs up out the car, sit it down, start trucking. And it's just sad. It's just sad to see it. And it's just like, that's one of my motivations with Young Entrepreneur Enterprises is to be able to build it to that point to where I can give her 10 years of her life to enjoy because she deserves it. She worked hard all her life. She doesn't have a high school education, or yeah, all she has is a high school education, I believe. And that's why she's always told us, get in school, get your education. She's been a real big advocate on that. And that's just something that I've been asking God for is to allow me to, bless her and allow her to have, her heaven on earth outside of, what God's called her to. So.
Well, she does seem to be happy and a blessing to many people, and it just goes to show you, though, even at being the age of 85, you just have to have that willingness to want to keep going and that tenacity to just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Just get up and do it.
She's a real inspiration.
Yes. To go back, then just finish this story up, and then we'll go to some other things that I want to address. Though, when you were a baby, and you say you were just snatched away from your mother. Now, was this her decision, or was this just the hospital?
Yeah, that's just children's services right there.
That,
yeah, that's children's services.
Okay.
Probably had me did a quick drug test, saw the level of drugs in my system. Was like, oh yeah, you're unfit, but you can't take care of this kid.
And I asked that question. I bring that one question up because I too was adopted. Situation was very similar, but very different.
Mm-hmm.
But the one question that I automatically asked is, why did she give you up?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case.
Exactly.
And so, because my mother had mental illness,
mm-hmm.
and with the drugs and the things in my family, nobody really was able to take care of me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things that's kind of frustrating. Because like, well, she didn't really give me up. She was 17 and she just didn't really have the know-how. So that's just one of the things I want to put out to viewers, that parents don't always give up their kids.
That's true, and that's something my grandma always told us was that everybody's not made to be a mother. Everybody's not made to be a mother. Be glad that God's giving you life. That's all really mothers owe to you is giving you the life. And that's something she always cemented in us. That no child is bad. No such thing as a bad kid. Things of those things. So it's really nice. That I was able to be brought up by them.
Yes, it is a blessing. So, how have you taken your experiences and how do you mold that into your own family and your dynamics that you have now? What are some of the lessons you've taken out of that and that you try to do differently or you try to apply?
I didn't have a father, so now I have to figure these things out on my own, by God's grace, and then I have to apply it. I have to apply it, but at the end of the day, I have to stay committed to it, because it's not just about me, but it's about my children. It's about whatever God has for my wife to do. So that's why I have to continue to push, and pull through, whatever may be going on in my head, whatever the circumstance may be, because my blessing you know, will actually bless my wife, will actually bless my kids. And then my son will be able to see, okay, this is how a man should operate. This is how a man should stay committed to his family. And then my daughters will see, hey, I want a man that's committed to his family. So it breaks all these cycles that's been happening. And now you're able to almost, regenerate, you know, your family tree per se, or, regenerate a lot of bad traits that may have been, inside of your family tree. So definitely, being a family man, being a husband, being a father is definitely a huge thing to me, and it drives me in a lot of ways. And just seeing things that maybe I wasn't able to receive as a child, being able to give those to my kids, it's a blessing. It's a blessing because, you know, had I received those things when I was a child, it might not even have been a big deal, giving it to my kids. So you just kind of see how God orchestrates things, you know, and then hey, God's building you to be a stronger person. But I just keep telling myself, God's grace is sufficient, and it works in me mightily. So I keep telling myself because I can't let my family fail.
For now, we're going to get ready to tell the audience goodbye. But this is Matthew Primes. He will be back on the show so we can hear some of those other endeavors that he has going on.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for watching this edition of Siobhan's World. Until next time.